Alright. Back in this thing. Alright. Let's see. Daily law. Power of desire and determination. When I was younger, I worked at a publishing house in New York. One of the people we published was Toni Morrison. It was her first novel. I'll never forget the story. Toni Morrison worked as an editor at this publication house. She worked until 6 or 7 p.m., then took the train home to where she lived in Connecticut. She was raising 2 children. She would go home, cook the meals, put them to bed, and at 11 p.m. she would sit down and write. And that's how she wrote her first novel. That's the kind of energy and determination you have to have. I always thought that was superhuman. I know I could never do that. But look at who she has become. It's because she wanted it so badly. Daily law. To rise to the level of mastery requires intense dedication. You have to really want it. What would make you have such commitment and dedication? All right. That's out of that book. It's funny. You can see the little green light from my mic. And out of this one, let's see. Most of us only know how to play either offensively or defensively. Either we go into attack mode, charging our targets in a desperate push to get what we want, or we try frantically to avoid conflict, and if it is forced on us, to ward off our enemies as best we can. Neither approach works when it excludes the other. Making offense our rule, we create enemies and risk acting rashly and losing control of our own behavior. But constant defensiveness backs us into a corner, becomes a bad habit. In either case, we are predictable. Instead, consider a third option, a Napoleonic way. At times, you seem vulnerable and defensive, getting your opponents to disregard you as a threat to lower their guard. When the moment is right and you sense an opening, you switch to the attack. Make your aggression controlled and your weakness a ploy to disguise your intentions. In a dangerous moment when those around you see only doom and the need to retreat, that is when you smell an opportunity. By playing weak, you can seduce your aggressive enemies to come at you at full throttle, then catch them off guard by switching to the offensive when they least expect it. Mixing offense and defense in this fluid fashion, you will stay one step ahead of your inflexible opponents. The best blows are the ones they never see coming. Yeah, that's a good one. Napoleon was a master at the art of war. Sun Tzu would have been proud. Going back to the daily law, power of determination. I've found, for me personally, well, let's see, the first time I discovered I have an infinite energy source is when I found purpose with taking care of dogs. Because that basically turned into an everyday thing. Like every day. No days off, I go hard. As Wale would say. I also heard someone say once, well, you're busy relaxing on your day off. Your opponents are busy working. That rang pretty deep for me. Right? Well, you're busy relaxing. Those who want to surpass you They're busy building. You have to kind of have that "I'll rest when I'm dead" mentality, I think. So even now, it's like I'll work 7 days a week, no problem. I get a little tired, but that's fine because I'm taking care of my family. And that is my purpose right now. That's what's giving me infinite energy reserves. Taking care of my woman and taking care of my little man, my little dog. Just, taking care of all the responsibilities that I have. And it's funny because once you start doing that, it feels it feels odd actually to have a day off. Because it feels like you should be doing something. That's why, like, not a lot of the time. I mean, recently I've been actually taking a day off because I guess it does seem it's a bit healthy to have a day off. I guess to just let your mind relax, if anything. Not that your body needs it, it's that maybe your mind needs it more. Because even on my main job, when we weren't working Saturdays, I'd call up my other job, pick up a day there, work Saturday there, and then Sunday there, and then back to my main job on Monday. I guess it just turns into a habit. I guess anything you do consistently for a while will turn into a habit. And I guess that's a good thing if it's a positive endeavor. I mean, we all know about bad habits. Those are easy to fall into. Good habits are harder to fall into. Bad habits seem like more fun when they first start out, but by the time it becomes a bad habit, then the fun's gone. I guess especially when it comes to like addiction of any kind, and addictions come in any form. It's not just like drugs and alcohol. It could be like video games, anything that you just can't stop doing. You're just obsessively doing. That's an addiction. And addictions are just extreme habits. You know, I guess like to a certain degree, I guess I could say I'm addicted to working. When it comes to the point where I feel weird when I'm not. I guess you could say that. Let's actually drink my drink today. I always forget because I'm too busy talking. Boy, this person is serious about going 55 miles an hour. No, there's signs that say there's construction on this freeway and that we're only supposed to be doing 55. No, everybody ignores it. Nobody really does it. This person is serious about it. What is happening? This is crazy. Maybe you've never driven on the freeway before. Hold on. Maybe they don't know where they are. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They're getting over. You don't know where you're going. That's what the deal is. Get over. Or another option, maybe they're drunk because now they're kind of swerving. Maybe they're going home from wherever they had a good time at. We shall see. That's okay, I'm patient. Offensive and defensive warfare. That's another good one. It's out of my Robert Greene book. He sources a lot of his material for that book from Napoleon. I definitely should get some sort of really comprehensive book on Napoleon. Alright. Yeah. Let's see. What else can I talk about? Oh no. The weather's getting so warm. That's another exercise for the mind. For mental resilience. Yeah, that whole chapter in 33 Strategies of War. It's like at least the section I'm on, which that paragraph was from. The phrase is like, when you're strong, act weak. When you're weak, act strong. It's like the projection of a false front to keep your opponent off guard. And this is just any form of competition. Just think of war as a competitive activity. I read somewhere, it's probably in this book, the best outcome of war is the one where you are essentially able to make your opponent surrender without ever really actually having to wage a war. So that's why most war starts on the psychological level. You know, if you can capture their mind first, it's easy to capture the physical aspect of war. I think that's a pretty cool idea. And I'm trying again a different position for my mic. Just to see how the audio comes out. But yeah, not a whole lot to talk about this morning. My mind's a bit blank. So this is going to be a pretty quiet video. I went to bed late. Not too late, but later than normal. I think the last time I glanced at my alarm, it said I had like 7.5 hours till my alarm was going to go off. Normally I'm laying down way before that. So we'll see how that affects my day. I'm normally all hopped up on caffeine anyway, so I suspect it's not going to do much in terms of affecting me anyways. Yeah, it's funny going back to that, like what will give you that level of determination when it comes to the power of your output. Being told I can't normally really amps me up because I have a very contrarian attitude and mentality. I don't like being told no, and it makes me real rebellious. That's a little demon of rebellion that I have sometimes, and I guess if it could be harnessed for good, but I guess it rarely ever is. But yeah. I think that's funny though. Like a simple no, that'll get me going. Or not even like being told no, but like knowing that someone doesn't think that I can. Not that they're telling me that I'm not supposed to, like I can't, but like being thought of not even having the ability to do whatever it is. I think I like proving people wrong. That could be a gift and a curse. Because like when it comes to a debate, or yeah, some sort of like mental joust, my mind kicks into overdrive. And normally I have a terrible memory, but like in a situation like that, all the information I need just instantly pops into my mind. But that only happens in like an area that I'm pretty confident I have knowledge in. I don't debate unless it's something that I absolutely know that I'm correct on. And this normally has a lot to do with the things I read and the information I take in. Because it's not even like I'm debating from a point of discovery. I didn't discover this information. I read a lot about it, and yeah, I know that what you're saying is wrong. I'm gonna open my mouth and say something. That's why I was so confident to not take the jab and open my mouth about that. It's not that I knew better. It's that I was listening to people that knew better. These people had high levels of academic knowledge, and professional knowledge in the area of, immunology and all kinds of different things. That's why a lot of people shit on Joe Rogan. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. But that's why a lot of people shit on him. But they're just like, oh, he's just some, musclehead. But look, you're missing the point. Look at who he's talking to. And the amount of expertise that his guests have. It's not that he's smart. It's just that he's talked to a lot of very smart people. And before he even talks to them, he reads their material. So he can approach the conversation from a knowledgeable perspective. I don't think people realize the amount of work that goes into his podcast prior to having the guest on. He's reading their books and he's watching all their videos and he's taking in all of their material before they even sit down to record. Not just meeting them for the first time. He's already met them through their material. That's like me having a conversation with Robert Greene. I've read all your books. So I kind of have a good idea of who you are and, how your mind works in terms of the material that you wrote and I was interested in. So when it comes to war, that's what I'm reading a lot about in these books. When it comes to war, and I'm sure anybody in the military will say this, I think even Sun Tzu touches upon this in The Art of War. You have to study your opponent. You don't just practice your tactics and the things that you are good at. You study your opponent and you study the things that they're good at. Matter of fact, that's more important to do, to study your opponent. Because if you're blind as to who you're about to engage in a conflict or a competition with, then you are half blind. You might as well cover one eye. I'm sure but that's why fighters watch tape of their opponents. You have to know the enemy almost better than you know yourself. I think opponent's a better word than enemy in that case. But they study hours and hours of tape, just catching their habits. They drop their hand here, or they move their head this way after they throw this punch. It's just, that's what you do. That's what's wise to do, is to study others. That's why I think one of the biggest mistakes that people are making today is they're so self-absorbed that they're not even considering other people. And I can't help but wonder if that's on purpose. That's why it's kind of as wild as the tinfoil hat world can be. They really do delve into the darker side of what the highest echelons of power are into when it comes to like the rituals that they involve themselves in, the belief systems, and a lot of it gets dark. When it comes to like Satan worship and Baphomet and Aleister Crowley, and there's some very high level, powerful people that take a lot of that dark stuff super serious. And if you don't know anything about it, then you have no idea what they're bringing to the table on a mass scale. If you don't know about psychological priming, if you don't know about, the Hegelian dialectic, if you don't know how any of these things work, then you won't even recognize it when it's happening. If you don't know about groupthink and how easy it is to get a mass of people worked up over something, all this is stuff, it's all used in politics and social engineering, and it's all done on purpose. And what you think is just like, a natural event like BLM, or this all, I stand with this, and I stand with Ukraine, and all this stuff, this is all on purpose, and it's all being handed to you. And if anything, it's just on the most benign level. It's given to you so you can waste your energy. Like you're having your whole energy directed in a way that's useless to you, but at the least beneficial to them, because at least you're not directing your energy at them. And then people say, who's them? Who are they? In the most broadest sense, it's the powers that want you to stay asleep so they can keep doing what they're doing. The global chess game is a real thing. There is like a 4D chess game being played right now. We're all kind of caught up in the middle of it. And some people will never see it because they're just not even paying attention. They are mesmerized. Anton Mesmer. Look him up. That's where the term mesmerized comes from. And being mesmerized is almost like being under a trance. It's almost like a hypnotic state of being psychologically captured by whatever it is. And the simplest example is like a moving object, how it could just capture your mind and keep you like just watching. That's the best like simple example I can give you. But even like the way someone speaks can be mesmerizing. The tone of voice, the cadence, the rhythm of the speech, that can all be mesmerizing. That's how cult leaders operate. They have a mesmerizing effect on the people that fall into the cult. All politicians know about this. If you want to gain followers, you have to know about this stuff. That's probably why I'll never have any kind of followers. I don't play into that. At least I try not to. Even Robert Greene's book, The Art of Seduction, kind of touches on this topic. All these tactics are used to mesmerize the target of a seduction. Right? When you're really into somebody and you're really trying to capture their heart and their mind, your whole being kind of changes. Your tone of voice, gets a little softer, a little bit more quiet. Even the The facial expressions change. The eye contact becomes a little bit more intense. All of this is an art with the intent of creating a hypnotic effect that will capture your prey. I might have unintentionally done this when I caught my woman. I don't know. I just poured out my heart. That's maybe what might have done it for me. I just unabashed honesty and sincerity. That's what I used. I didn't have much to hide anyways, so I didn't hide anything. I just opened up to her, and she accepted that into her life. At least I like to think. She may have a different story. I don't know. Come on. All right. Almost to my exit. But yeah, to be honest, I should crack open that Art of Seduction book again. I've only read through it once. I've read all his other books a bunch of times, but that one book I've only read once, and that's probably one I should really read a lot. Very slowly and meticulously. Oh, it's the police. Yeah, when you have like a purpose, like something that really hits deep, you'll find that you have an infinite amount of energy to pursue whatever that is. Like if you fall in love with some sort of like creative endeavor, or if it's just something that it tends to be something that's like interactive. Like I can't. Well, I guess it could be like a form of entertainment where you're more of a passive observer, not so much involved in it. I guess if you find a show that I gotta watch that next episode. I guess it gets you a little bit amped and excited, energized to watch it. So I guess the same rule still applies. But really, when it's something that's like you're actually actively involved in, where you're like doing something other than just sitting and taking in whatever it is, then yeah, you have so much energy, time just flies. You become lost in it. Like for me, like a long time ago, it was like making music. I guess I have a musical talent to a certain degree. I guess when it comes to music production, anyways, I mean, I can't play an instrument, but I do. I can. I do have a talent for like musical theory, I guess you could say. And, note structure and all that stuff. Yeah, because of that, the hours would fly by while I was doing that. All right. So that's what I'd probably say too. On top of that, is that if you can identify whatever that is that automatically amps you up and excites you in a way that it's something that you're actively involved in, that's probably what you should probably be doing for, I don't want to say work, but your career is probably like your life's goal is wherever that passion energizes you, is what I think I would say. I don't know what that is for me anymore. So it used to be music, and then for a while I thought it had something to do with dogs, but it's I really only just love dogs. When it comes to like having to interact with the humans over dogs, I'm not too into that. The humans are what ruin pretty much everything for me. It's easy to correct dogs. It's harder to correct humans. All right. Well, I made it. Find your passion and your purpose. Get energized. Do something. Take your time. Go slow. Do it well. Do it right. And if it's a competitive endeavor, when you're weak, act strong. And when you're strong, act weak. Throw them off guard. That's what I say. Never let them see what's coming. All right. Let's go to work.